What's up, guys? Welcome to week 3 of the Chasing Kilos podcast. Today, we're going to dive a little deeper into nutrition. And just keep in mind that neither of us are registered dietitians or nutritionists or anything like that. So, everything we say should be taken with a grain of salt. And anything that has to do with your own body, you should do a tiny bit of research for anything. Um, so, Why don't we start off with what defines a calorie? Like, there's a lot of things, a lot of places that say a calorie is not a calorie or good calories versus bad calories. What's a calorie, Matt?
Well, simply, it's just a unit of measurement. And that's just a very standardized, like as if it was a pound, a gram, whatever. Um, and that's where it starts to get a little tricky is defining like what that really is after that. But in the simplest of terms, a calorie is a unit of measurement for how much energy food contains.
Right. So that's just like a what scientists or people use to measure if they break down a food, what type of how much energy is going into you and what type of how much energy your body is expanding or going through. Sorry. So there's 3 macronutrients that are made up of calories, which are proteins, fats, and carbs. For the most part, people know that proteins used for rebuilding cells, such as your muscles. Fats are very important for maintaining, excuse me, maintaining like your hormonal balance and also just for general upkeep of things going on inside of you. And then carbs are what are our main source of energy, just because carbohydrates break down into sugars. And at the cellular level, our cells use sugars to keep doing what they do. So with that being said, there's a pretty big myth out there that, carbs or fats or sugars are bad. What's your take on that?
Yeah. So it really all comes back down to calories. There's not one that's like necessarily bad or good for you. Like we do know that like saturated fats are probably not the healthiest thing. So like in that regard, we do have like a pretty good understanding of like why fats at times can be bad, but just a fat isn't bad for you and just carbs aren't bad for you. It's really just your total caloric intake. And I feel like people like to like blame one or like vilify another almost to just push their own agenda, which is obviously unfortunate.
Yeah, so it's easy to blame fats for contributing to your weight gain or whatever, just because fats have the most calories per gram of the 3 macronutrients. So protein and carbs actually has 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. And then it's not really a macronutrient, but alcohol has 7 per gram, which is why it's easy to go over your caloric deficit if you are in one by having a few drinks. But, like Matt said, it's easy to blame, say, fats just because it has a higher calorie per gram count than carbs and proteins for making you gain weight or halting you from losing weight. Do you have those same views on like just sugar, or do you just count those as simple carbs?
It's tricky. I typically count them as just simple carbs, like for the caloric intake for the day.
Right.
But I try and limit like the amount of actual sugars. And when I do eat sugar, I want it more like structured around my actual workout or the training session itself. But yeah, like as far as like simple sugars go, I try and limit those as much as possible, just because I know I feel like crap when I eat a lot of them.
Yeah.
Like my energy levels tank. They're also just not great for inflammation. Like I'll notice that like if I'm going through some pretty heavy training, and I start to get like aches and pains that just start to add up, cutting out sugars can help with that a ton, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's funny. And obviously like different people have like a different sensitivity to it. But I find that like, I mean, sometimes I'll even cut out like the Kool-Aid powder that I take during a session if it gets really, really bad.
I didn't know that was a factor in inflammation.
Right. Then you know what? It was one of those things where like I started reading about it and then saw the research and was like, yeah, like, but does it actually have that effect? And I know personally for me, like I noticed the difference.
Okay, cool. Um, all right. Well, how about what do you think constitutes healthy? Like what makes someone's diet or food choice healthy?
That's that's a tough question.
It's a
I would
very
say
tough
that
question.
for sure. And like there's two different mindsets of like health and then on the other hand performance. And personally right now I know I'm definitely more in like a performance mindset, and that's probably just my age and where I'm at in life. But I would say health, like healthy foods are something that you can eat sustainably for like long periods of time and feel good. And obviously not have any like detrimental health effects.
Yeah, like guys, like I said, if you just eat like an adult, if you're just eating like living things,
Exactly.
then you're pretty good.
Exactly. It really is
Um,
like pretty simple. But I know there's so much information out there that makes it confusing as well. So
yeah, like there's healthy fats, unhealthy fats, good sugars and bad sugars, all that.
right.
Um, in the end, it breaks down to carbs, fats, and proteins in your body. Um, it goes a little deeper into that, obviously, but like in the end, they all break down to the same macronutrients. It's just how they're getting into you and also their micronutrients, which is their vitamins and minerals content. Just saying how they get into you is a factor because more processed foods mean your
Absolutely.
body
And I
has to.
guess like on top of what,
Go ahead, sorry.
no, you're fine. I've got a little lag on my end. So keep
Okay.
going.
Yeah, so like the more processed your food is, the less processing your body has to do. So say, ground beef versus eating a steak, you don't have to break down the ground beef as much as you have to break down the steak. Um, Cereal is another one. It's already, all of the ingredients are pretty much broke down to their simplest form before held together with sugar or whatever, but same thing.
Right. Right. It's the same thing with like liquid versus solid foods. Like
Yes.
during your training session, like if you need quick carbs, it's easier to just mix up Kool-Aid, lemonade, whatever you normally do, because it'll be digested faster and it'll cause less like gastrointestinal upset than
Yeah.
eating like a bowl of pasta while you lift, obviously.
um, Actually, here's a just to go off topic a bit. What are your thoughts on eating pre-training session?
Yeah, I have to. Like I don't do well like early morning workouts if I don't have food in me. Oh my god, it's bad. So I definitely have to eat. But that being said, like I do have a weaker stomach, and like I have to eat at least an hour out of the training session. Um, and even then, like it's got to be pretty low in fat.
Right.
Carbs and protein totally fine, but high fat makes my stomach feel like crap. And that's why I usually, like I said, if I can't get it in at least an hour before, I'll have a shake with carbs and protein and call it there, just so that I don't make myself feel sick.
Have you tried closing in that time frame, or has it always been like at least an hour out?
Yeah, no, definitely. I've tried it before, and like I used to kind of be able to get away with it. Um, Honestly, I think I found that I used to be able to get away with it more because my workouts were there's like different kind of training. I was doing more of like a bodybuilding split. So it was very like isolated exercises and less like total volume. And I just found that like I could tolerate that as opposed to like eating and then going in and doing sets of 10 squats, or whatever we're doing now with the Olympic lifts.
Yeah.
I feel like crap if
Right.
it doesn't go well.
Yeah. For the most part, I was the same way too. I started training myself so I could eat closer to my workouts. Just eat, closer and closer as I get used to it. But regardless, I think good advice for a lot of people is to eat an hour out. They're just go by that rule that don't go in the pool if you're eating now versus or wait however minutes to go into the pool. But I think an hour is a good time for and also low fat, just because fat takes longer to digest. But that's a good general rule of thumb for a lot of people. What do you usually eat? Is it just anything, or do you have like a structured plan for that?
I don't want to say like structured in the sense that I purposely eat the same thing before every session. But like I am pretty routine. So usually it's probably eggs. And I love those Kodiak cakes just because they have better macros than a regular pancake. But like eggs and Kodiak cakes, and a cup of coffee. That's 90% of the time what I'll be eating before training. Unless, I mean, if I'm working before, same thing. However, I can kind of get those quick carbs and protein in. I mean, sometimes it's even like a Pop-Tart.
Yeah.
I know that sounds silly, but if I'm in a pinch, that's not a bad choice just to get some carbs in. It's better than not eating, in my opinion.
Right. Just on that topic, actually, guys, Pop-Tarts are a great thing just to keep in the car or in your bag, just because they're pretty dense in calories and they last forever. So, if you're working long hours or whatever and you're just really hungry, it's good to have on hand.
I was gonna say, did you hear that smoke alarm?
Yeah.
We're good.
All right.
No, Pop-Tarts are. It's funny because I feel like that's like almost a standard post-workout snack now, or pre-workout. But I mean, I get the Market Basket ones. It's 99 cents for 3. Not a bad deal, and they're delicious.
Definitely. I generally have so mini wheats have 50 grams of carbs per bowl. So I usually go with mini wheats or some type of carb, and then I go with usually like a teaspoon of salt as well, and that could be people in the non-lifting world might find that a little controversial just because of the high sodium scare that everyone's all about. But it's an electrolyte, so it prevents cramping. And then if you're drinking enough water, it keeps you hydrated.
It's funny because like people will like, I don't know, they get all in a fuss when you say that you put a little bit of salt in your water, but then they'll go out and buy like an electrolyte drink. It's the same thing.
Right, exactly.
Way cheaper, obviously.
Yeah. And then with none of the calories, if that's what you're watching.
Right, exactly. I mean, if you're trying to limit your calories, it's way easier to just put a pinch of salt in water than or whatever it may be.
Right. So let's say if someone comes to you and they say they want to, be on a weight management program, whether it's lose weight or gain weight, and then they're coming up with all these, these diets they see in the media. What do you usually say to that? Like, for example, like keto, Atkins, I don't know, paleo, whatever.
Yeah. So I'm less about like subscribing to a specific method of doing it, as opposed to like embracing it as like the basic principles and then creating a lifestyle around that. So like understanding that it's less calories in and more exercise and more activity. And then it's more about like building habits as opposed to picking a diet, if that makes sense. So like we take out the big blocks right away, like more water, lots of vegetables, higher protein. And to be honest with you, like if you start with those 3 things, a lot of things are going to go right. And honestly, like those are basically the 3 things that all fat loss like diets agree on. Like paleo, keto, Atkins, like they're all higher protein. They all have vegetables. They all have lots of water. You know what I mean? So like, it's just really that simple. And then from there, like if someone really wants to do paleo or really wants to do keto, I guess I'm not going to stop you, but I care more about the habits that are in place for it, because that's what's going to make it last, not a specific diet or a specific like religion like following for something.
Right. That's a good way to think of it. I usually, if someone is like new to the whole process, I don't want to put that type of stress on them to strictly adhere to a certain diet.
It's not easy.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're cutting out so
Right.
many types of food that you're used to eating. I go by more of a macro approach, just to get a bit of flexibility in there first, just to let them have some
Yeah,
control over it. And then that
definitely.
way, yeah. So people, for those of you who don't know, uh, flexible dieting approach means that you would get, X amount of calories a day, and that's broken down into X amount of fats, proteins, and carbs. Generally, for a lifter, I would recommend 1 gram or zero point 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And then most people do well on like 20 to 30% fats of your body weight. I know I'm a high fat eater, so I usually go over. And then they just fill the rest in with carbs. Um, and then you just hit that however you want. And I tell people to look at it like a bank account where, you're getting your calories is your cash on hand, and then whatever you want to spend it on, you make sure those foods that you're able to budget it into your overall caloric intake for the day or the week or whatever.
Exactly. I think putting it into like a financial standpoint makes a ton of sense because like a lot of people might not have like formal education or experience with dieting and nutrition, but
Right.
most of the clients that I've worked with, especially when I was working in Boston in more like financial area, like people understood finances and they get budgeting. And so it's just easier to make those correlations, I feel like. So that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Um, so when you first started taking a look at your diet, was it difficult for you to be hitting whatever numbers, or was it more difficult to be restricting yourself?
um, so for me, I've always had a hard time. And once again, I'm more performance based right now than health. But I've always had a hard time hitting my numbers just because my body naturally likes to be pretty light. So for me to like perform at a pretty good level, I have to eat more than I'm comfortable eating. So I would say that typically it's hard for me to hit my numbers as opposed to restricting foods.
Yeah, I mean, you're at a pretty high body weight, so that's like if I'm having trouble hitting my protein goal, and that's difficult for you.
Right. Like, and that's the thing is like hitting the calorie goal isn't really hard because obviously you can just house a ton of Pop Tarts.
Right.
Or just eat like crap. But then, like what we are talking about, is breaking it down by macronutrient. It's tough and it's not easy to eat that much protein without going crazy in carbs and making things really gross and disgusting. Because
Yeah.
while I do like the flexible dieting, I try and keep it reined in for the most part because it can get sloppy.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on people who, say think they need whey or creatine or any of that?
Right. So, I mean, I don't think anyone needs either of those things, but they can certainly be helpful. And I take both, um, just because like the research on creatine is so solid, and there's so much of it. And even from not from like a performance standpoint, but there's stuff saying that it can help you like cognitively and just with like thought processing. So I recommend that to anyone, and it's so cheap.
Yeah.
But protein, that's the other thing too, is protein helps when you're trying to hit that macro goal. Like you said, like zero point 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. Depending on how heavy you are, that can get tough. So having like a quick, cheap, easy whey protein powder is always nice.
Yeah, definitely. Um, it's definitely a lot easier than, eating another chicken or whatever. Um, what are your
Oh
thoughts
my God,
on,
I just can't eat anymore.
the myth that creatine holds water, or you get water retention, water bloating from creatine? Have you ever dove into any of that?
Um, yeah. So like my understanding is that certain people are like high responders for creatine, and then the first couple of weeks they'll gain like a couple pounds, and significantly kind of almost see a difference. I've never don't really know the difference when I start taking creatine. I don't gain any more weight. I still take it. I said it's cheap, and there's so much research behind it, and like it's so cheap that even if it doesn't work, take it and risk. And, but yeah, some people will blow up in like a couple will gain a few pounds. So I guess it's just more like how your body responds to it.
Yeah, it's not something to worry about. You're not gonna hold on to a lot of weight. But any water weight held is just part of the process of creatine or excess creatine interacting with your body. So the way creatine works is it draws more water into your cells, so it does give your muscles that a little bit of a fuller look. But that's really as far as it goes. What was that, sorry?
People forget that is like,
yeah.
I don't know, like water weight, like the scary term, and like what people aren't realizing is like that water is being like pulled into the muscle cell, making it look bigger. So I mean, I don't know why water weight has like such a bad like connotation behind it, because like creatine adding a little bit of water weight to you, it's literally making your muscle belly a little bit fuller.
Yeah, exactly.
Great thing.
Yeah. Are you just breaking up a bit here?
Yeah. Is it catching up now?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. My internet's not great. I don't know why.
That's all right. So do you go to anyone for, general advice or research when you're talking about diet or have diet questions, or do you go to any websites or anyone in particular?
That's a good question, because like there's so much information out there and it's hard to know like where to go.
Yeah, exactly.
I would say my number one is Precision, just because they put out such great content, and for the most part, like if I read them, I can for that information to someone else, know that enough, and that it's something that I could stand behind. They just do such like a great, thorough job.
Sorry, you're breaking up again. Some of what you said got a little muddled.
No, I can go again.
Yeah.
Basically, as long as you know, Precision Nutrition. That's where it's at. You guys do an awesome job.
Did you go through their certification actually?
As a coach, I'm still signed up for like they have like text updates and email updates, and I always get like the information on when they're having it, and I guess just financially.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It is, but you know what? It's so worth it that at some point I do want to pull the trigger on that, because it's such great information.
Yeah, definitely. Precision Nutrition is one of the blogs that I used to follow. I guess I stopped, but I shouldn't have. But they definitely do write some really good stuff. Besides that, I don't know. I haven't really been following a lot of nutrition stuff lately. But when I used to, I know. I mean, I don't like the guy, but what's his name? You know who I'm talking about? The IFYM guy. Layne Norton.
Layne Norton. Yeah. Wicked smart guy.
Yeah. I don't like the guy, but he knows what he's talking about.
He's a nutritionist, right? He has his PhD and everything. That's fair.
Yeah. I mean, he's good, but I just don't like him. Yeah, no, you got stopped for a second.
I don't know, like a lot of it's about. Am I back?
Yeah.
A lot of it's like how you present information. I don't know, like I feel like you can be a really smart person, but you have to be able to communicate that without rubbing people the wrong way.
Yeah,
and that's hard to do. It is.
Yeah. It used to be something that I guess was a bit nervous about when I was working at BSC, but I mean, after a while, people either they like you or you don't, or they don't.
For sure. And like not everyone's right for you, and you're not right for everyone. It really comes down to like that connection that you make and how compatible you people are, like with each other. Just because like a good coach might not be a good fit for someone, and that's
Yeah,
totally.
yeah. All right. Just to close it out, what's one tip you can give people to improve their nutrition game?
I think like the simplest thing is start if you have been. You don't have to track all, but I think everyone should do what certain foods contain and how many calories it has, and just reading labels. Week will do a lot for your understanding of nutrition, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That's a really good one, actually. It does take a little bit just to get into the habit of tracking.
It does.
And then also another one of the main challenges is like estimating how much of a certain food you're eating, especially if you're cooking at home. But it's definitely a good habit to get into. Um, Mine, I guess, is just to eat more protein.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to track it, but as long as you know you're putting another protein source into your body, it's always a good thing, unless you're trying to lose weight, in which don't.
Yeah. It's crazy how little protein people will eat.
Yeah.
Actually insane.
Well, the thing
I'm
is,
not
the like the dietary guideline or whatever says you should be eating 100 grams a day. So I think a lot of people are just going on that.
right. And then even then they're low balling. But yeah, like 100 grams a day, that's so low.
Yeah.
Especially like if you're or you have like activities that demand protein, like obviously weightlifting.
Right. Um, and I'm just googling this. The average weight of an American male is 191, and a female is 166. So regardless, 100 is way too little.
Especially if you're going off that like 1 gram per pound of body weight, which has kind of stood the test of time.
Yeah.
Like that's almost half of what you should be doing.
Right.
Crazy.
Oh, real quick. Too much protein in the kidneys. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a load of horse shit. um, no, but like that came from not a good place, but like it comes from the idea that kidney failure, and I'm sure like they meant well, but like regular normal functioning kidneys can handle that, and you're just gonna pee a little bit more. Like if that's the worst thing that's gonna happen, I think we're all okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, don't discount what your kidneys and liver do. You save a lot of money on supplements and detoxes. Um, but I don't. I think like even the high end of the high protein diets they tested or ran research on, it doesn't go that high. I think it's like 1.2 to 1.5 grams per body weight. And I know there's you know, a, a lot of people out there who are
Yeah.
eating that, if not more. But that is all we have for this week. We hope you learned something. If not, again, put in the comments below, and then we'll get to it in another week. Don't forget to follow both of us at Chasing Strength, at Kilos and Closings. Yeah, you got anything, Matt?
No, I think that's it. Looking forward to thank you to everyone who watches.
Yeah, definitely. We're getting a lot more viewers than we thought, so thank you all.
Yeah, seriously, it's awesome. It really is.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you next week.